We're going to talk more about this story, U.S.-Cuban relations. Peter Hakim joins us. He's Inter-American Dialogue's former president. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
First, your initial reaction when you first heard about this?
Terrific. Terrific. The first thing I heard was that Gross was freed. That was good news. And I read down a little further, and not only was he freed, but it was a change with the 3 Cuban prisoners, which made it even better, which meant there was an agreement between the 2 countries.
The establishment, and we don't talk about this very often, but the reestablishment of diplomatic ties. I mean, this brings us back decades. I won't go into the reason why those ties were cut off, but the reestablishment of that, how big of a deal is that?
That's tremendous. I mean, the fact is that this makes Cuba, part of the hemisphere again. It's not rejected by any country. This is, and of course, it means that Cuba will probably be taken off the terrorist country list now, when it's one of 3 countries. Cuba will return to a certain level of normality with the United States as a result.
So when countries want to grow, they need investment. To get investment, you need money. To need money, you have banks. Right now, there isn't that apparatus in place between the U.S. and Cuba. Now, with these new restrictions being lifted, that will allow the banking to occur, as you mentioned, and also the credit cards and all that stuff put in place. How long will it take to get that to a place where we'll start discussing which industries will benefit?
Well, I think it'll be quite a while, frankly. I think that clearly, in my view, that this opening is taking place as the Venezuela economy is deteriorating sharply, and Cuba is very worried about losing $4 or $5 billion a year that Venezuela currently provides them. And the only other possible source in the short term is the United States through remittances, tourism, some investments. But, it's not going to attract big investors until the ground rules are pretty firmly established.
It takes time. I saw a picture earlier of the president in the White House on the phone with Raul Castro.
Right.
And I have to think historically that is obviously huge. Is he going to have a closer dialogue with the U.S. as well in terms of talking to, you'll have to ultimately invite banks and companies if you're going to do any type of joint business. There's going to have to be a pretty big engagement between both sides.
The economic changes in Cuba have been extraordinarily slow. In fact, so slow that some people think that they really can't be sustained much longer unless they speed up a bit. And I can't imagine that the Cubans are going to easily sort of turn to the U.S. when they're uncomfortable, suspicious about their own small entrepreneurs, that they're going to sort of...
Look, what does Raul Castro want out of this?
Well, I think he wants some security, frankly. I think that he's hoping to, in the first instance, just this expansion of remittances. I mean, the U.S. now sends $1.5 billion, $2 billion a year in remittances. You raise the limits, you'll probably get another billion or so. That's real money in Cuba.
On the positive side, we can also see a speeding up of reforms, right? A lot of reforms, the small business stuff that we've talked about in the past, the people owning their own houses and cars and all these things that...
I'm frankly more skeptical of this because of the insistence that the powers that be to maintain control. And economic growth depends on innovation, change, imagination, risk-taking. And as long as the governing elite wants to maintain...
Might Raul be open to that? What you're telling us, might Raul be at least a little more open to that?
I think he is more open, but I think that there is, this is a country that's struggling between a system that is now coming to an end, and they have to innovate, they have to change, but they're very reluctant to give up the control over it.
We have a minor detail we have failed to mention. The Republicans in Congress.
Right.
They're going to have something to say about that. Why do we
Absolutely.
care? Why do we care what they think?
I don't think we care a lot on this issue. Frankly, I don't think the U.S. cares a lot about Cuba at this stage. I think this is a...
I meant the Republicans. I mean, they have to approve any big changes, don't they, in terms of restrictions?
I think that what will happen, is there'll be 2 factors. What kinds of political reaction there is in the United States, not only from the Republicans, but the Cuban American community, the population in general. And I don't see any real opposition, popular opposition to this, the way there was to immigration. I think this is something that will be absorbed quickly. And secondly, whether Cuba begins to make the kinds of changes that will allow for the kind of exchanges and engagement that the United States are proposing, whether Cuba will begin to open up politically a bit. If that happens, I think that this will begin a process. If the Cubans are unwilling to change, though, it will be much harder.
There are a lot of moving parts to this story and a lot of potential and a lot of lives at stake. Peter, Hakim, thank you very much for your very candid comments on this very important day.